Hi, it's Laura at Aquamarine18. Thanks for stopping by my channel today. I am here with a installment in the 31 Days of Witchcraft hosted by Heather Carter. As always, I'll leave a link in the description box below and the tag itself so that you can see all of the prompts for the month and find other channels that are participating as well. So today for day 23, I want to discuss the prompt. What would your golden nugget of advice be for a new witch? What do you wish you knew when you first started out? And I have tried to organize my thoughts to avoid being overly rambly on this one, and not with much success. And I've tried to distill things down to a single golden nugget of advice, and I don't know that I've been that successful in that either. But to give you a little ramble, as I usually do, I would say that my golden nugget of advice is to be deliberate and intentional, and to take the time to be deliberate and intentional as you start a personal practice. And whether that's the language of a new witch, whether that is a practice that you consider to be witchcraft or magic or just a spiritual practice, or so a pagan religious practice, for example, take the time, sit down with your journal. If you're anything like me, I like to journal, and really clarify for yourself what is motivating your search for this new path or your starting of this new path. What are you looking for in a personal practice? What function do you want that practice to play? What role do you want that practice to play in your life? Are you looking for a practice to, provide structure to your reverence for deity? Are you looking for a personal practice that is nature-based and place-based and connects with your environment? Are you looking for a practice focused on ancestors? Are you looking to explore divination? And if so, how do you think the mechanics of divination operate for you, and why? And I think some of this has to do with really sitting down and clarifying for yourself. And this is something I wish I did way sooner than I did. Really sitting down and clarifying for yourself, what philosophical, religious, spiritual, political commitments and beliefs do you have and hold that are important to you? And given all of that, how could a personal practice, a magic practice, a witchcraft practice, support and express those beliefs and commitments in the best way for you? And this keeps the focus in terms of starting a personal practice. It keeps the focus really personal, right? And I think that, just in life in general, I think that we are much more likely to find what it is that we're looking for, to have our desires met when we take the time to clarify, what exactly those are, right? As opposed to just kind of bouncing around the internet and buying 50 books, which, I love buying 50 books, and just kind of researching a whole bunch of things haphazardly or at random, right? Really taking the time to think about what it is you want and what kinds of practices might fit in the best way for you. Because I think it can be easy, when you discover something like, the magical world of witchcraft, right? Or magical practices, it can be really easy to be really enamored by and interested in, this and that and this and that, and candles and sigils and crystals and herbs and, the wheel of the year and Wicca and all of the, there's so much, right? There's so much. And the more intentionally and deliberately and mindful that you are in your approach, I think the more, what do I want to say? The more specific your search can be, right? You may then be able to have a better idea of what kinds of practices might work well for you and meet the desires that you have, and which maybe, aren't going to do that, but then you don't need to spend, a bunch of time pursuing, right? And on that note, I think, another perhaps little nugget of advice is to just, keep things simple. I think, at least looking at my own experience with this and being on a spiritual path or a magical path, it's easy to get really overwhelmed. And I'm someone who wants to read every book on something, and there are a lot. And it's really, really easy to just feel like you're drowning in information and in options and possibilities, when you discover this world of possibilities that just feels, so compelling, and you want to incorporate these things into your everyday life, maybe don't try to learn 20 modes of divination at once. at least for me, picking a thing or a few things and engaging with them in a more holistic and deeper way. For me, sooner it's going to mean that, sooner if that thing is perhaps not for you, or maybe it is for you, and then you'll know how, right? And then you can think about what other practices might complement it and bring more in as you go, as opposed to, and I think that this is a tendency, and I've talked to other folks who've had similar, experiences to me, but maybe this isn't something you relate to, in which case just, don't take my advice. But I think that it's tempting to want to go, or it was for me, from having like no personal practice at all, no spiritual practice, no religious practice, no magic practice at all, to all of a sudden having a fully fleshed out, coherent, system of rituals and commemorative times and holidays I recognize and types of magical workings that I do and skills and all of these things, right? But it's called a path for a reason, right? We talk about a path for a reason. These journeys are lifelong. And, I think this kind of setting of intentions and being really deliberate in our decisions is something to do all the time, right? But particularly at those first stages, because it's not, you don't go, at least not in my experience, again, you don't go from having no personal practice whatsoever to having it all figured out, right? And having a bunch of things that fit neatly together exactly the way that you wanted them to, right away, And so it's just maybe just picking somewhere to start, maybe candle magic is a thing that you're really intrigued by, and you would like to incorporate some candle magic into your life. So start there. And that's just an example, right? There's myriad places that you could choose to start. But trying to make the leap and bypass the important part of the path, which is the path itself, it doesn't, in my experience, work out very well. And that, I think, is maybe the last point that I want to end on, which also goes, it goes back to where I started in terms of being deliberate and being intentional and really checking in with yourself and seeing what it is that you're looking for and what's important to you, what's philosophically important to you, what's spiritually important to you, and letting that guide, your search and your development of a practice that works for you. I think that also means avoiding the approach of template hunting, right? Looking, buying, the big book of pagan whatever that talks about a whole bunch of different traditions with the attitude of like, well, I just have to find the one that fits me, right? As though there's something out there that's going to 100% exactly as it's written, fit exactly what you want, exactly what you believe, exactly what you need in your life, exactly what you want to be doing. And you just have to find, the author or whatever it is that tells you how to do that, right? I think that particularly maybe for those of us who come from a background of more rigid religions or more hierarchical, or top down, thou shalt kind of religious backgrounds, it can be really tempting to want to go that route, right? To learn, okay, this set of beliefs and rules and practices that I grew up with doesn't fit me, so I have to find the other one out there that does, right? As opposed to starting, with the magic that you already have here and seeing where that takes you and letting that be a source of creative inspiration, right? Creative inspiration. Because it's in there, and you can't, and this reminds me a little bit of a prompt, a while back this month that asked about, do you use pre-written spells or pre-written kind of rituals, or do you write your own, right? And I think that the idea of that write your own can be really, really, really daunting to someone who's just starting out, and maybe it's not something you feel comfortable with right off the bat. But I do think, finding a level of comfort within yourself in terms of your knowing what it is that you're looking for and knowing what it is that you want your practice to do will help someone feel more empowered, to really feel like their witchcraft practice or their magic practice is something that they can generate, right? As opposed to just being something that is kind of there waiting for you to find it fully formed, and then you can just start doing it exactly as is, right? So this was a ramble. I'm proud of myself for having kept myself to 12 minutes. Hopefully it's somewhat sensible. I always do this in these videos. I'll think about the question ahead and I'll write, 3 little 1-word bullet points and say, if I get these 3 things in, I'll be satisfied with it. And then before you know, I'm here quite a while later and I've said a whole bunch of things just coming to me that at the end I'm never quite sure if I've said what I wanted to say or if what I've said makes sense. But that would be, to end off, that would be my golden nugget of advice, would be to just take the time to look inward, to be intentional, to be deliberate, to really think about what you need, what you want, what you're looking for. And what I wish I knew when I first started out is that the magic is a thing that you already have. You don't need to find it, right? It's there, and how you express it and, honor it and share it and, bring it into the world is going to look different for every person, and that's okay, and that's great. Actually, it's a great thing. So that's my thoughts. Thank you for watching. I will see you again tomorrow with another installment of the 31 Days of Witchcraft. Have a good one. Bye.